All right, I think we're at 6. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Kalispell School District 5. Rebecca, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. All right. First order on here was the approval of minutes. We had a short, well, didn't have a short meeting, but short minutes from our board meeting last month. Is there anyone out there willing to make an motion, or actually any corrections, I guess, to those minutes? Move to accept the minutes as presented. Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I also accept that. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
What do you think? Do I look cooler?
Definitely.
Okay, student reports.
100%.
Oh, haven't turned that on, excuse me. Student reports. No one from the middle school, is that? They get to celebrate Valentine's Day. Okay, but I'll leave that to, I'll go on. The Flathead. Wonderful, thanks, Taylor.
Testing. Great. Hello, everyone. I am Taylor Pouton. I am the junior class representative, and today I will be filling in for Ivy Gannon, who sadly could not attend. And I figured I'd let you all a little bit in on what's going on currently at Flathead. So we recently had a ton of different extracurricular activities, particularly a lot of different state events. So first and foremost, we just had wrestling state, which was fairly successful. We had our boys take second place overall and our girls take third place overall. And we had Noah Powhatan, who was our state champ at 182 pounds, which we're pretty proud of. We also had a lot of other state competitions with state speech and debate, who just finished, and they took third place overall with 5 state champions. And then they had national qualifiers actually just last week, in which they had 11 national qualifiers who will hopefully be going to Phoenix, Arizona just this summer. So that's also really exciting for our speech team. Beyond this, we also had swim states, which was fairly successful, but I do not have exact statistics on that. And I've heard a lot of great things from my fellow classmates who happen to be swimmers. We also had DECA State, and if you don't know what DECA is, it's a business club in which students can participate and kind of simulate what a real business interview or scenario might look like. And that was also fairly successful, in which Flathead won the Spirit Award. And we also had 5 state champions and many more national qualifiers who will be going to Florida this summer. So that's also really exciting. Besides the competitions, we also had our HOSA club, which is our health club, and we had a particular student named Keely Mahoney, who actually testified at a legislative session for student organizations that support career-related opportunities. And we're just really proud of her for going out all the way to the Capitol and meeting with those legislators and expanding and showing her own opinion on that. Besides clubs, Student Council actually just had the winter dance, and we worked together with Glacier on that. And we had a lot of really cool new things this year, including an iPad Air giveaway. It was pretty awesome, and we're really glad that we did it. We have a lot of new ideas going into next year that we hope to implement. As well as that, Student Council is now starting to plan the upcoming prom and what other fundraising opportunities we are looking forward to this spring, which is pretty exciting. Finally, some normal school stuff. We had our registration for our 8th graders and the rest of the school. And so we had a swarm of kids come in. In fact, we had 439 of them. So we're expecting a very big freshman class. And we had an amazing turnout, and we got to show them a lot of what the school has to offer. Our great mentors actually got to give them an entire tour and kind of teach them what it will be like when they go to high school next year, even if they decide to not go to Flathead. So finally, it's also semester 2, and we're already 4 weeks in, which is kind of scary for kids like me who have our grades coming up, but we are very excited for this year and all it's had to offer. And hopefully there is a lot more coming up next that we're very excited for. So thank you all.
Taylor, yeah, we might have questions. I have one. I don't know if you have any idea, but how does that number compare, the incoming freshmen who came to register? 439 sounds like a lot. Any idea?
Yeah, it
Like
certainly is. When I was a freshman myself, we had about 420, and it certainly tends to whittle down as students graduate early or maybe go to other schools, but we can expect coming in that this will be once again a pretty large class, and they only seem to get bigger every single year.
Anyone else? Yeah.
And how did you participate in DECA?
Yes, it wasn't obvious by the T-shirt. I participated in a bunch of different events. Namely, I ended up taking state champ in one of them, which was pretty cool. It's a really awesome opportunity. It's definitely one of my favorite clubs, and it was really cool to kind of experience a new form of business and interact with actual people who run businesses from Butte, who have an understanding of how that works in the real world.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how'd you do at state? For debate.
For speech and debate, yes, I also won first place in my event.
I knew that. Good job. I wanted
Any further questions? Great, thank you guys so much.
Taylor.
Thank you.
She's
so sweet. She's
Good
like, and
here.
people did well.
Right. No one from Glacier? Right, then I guess we'll go on to building updates. Bill? Okay. Both of you, tag team. And just noticing red, that for Valentine's Day as well?
Or our Russell School Council.
Yes, okay.
Red and white is red.
Lynn's angry.
I did, when a principal says that we are kind of updating the school board on February 14th, not a lot of people jump for joy and say, I'm coming. So I knew that Peter would certainly be proud of me for getting his wife here on Valentine's night, so they could spend a little time together. I have Mary Cicero with me, she's our guidance counselor. We're gonna talk a little bit about social emotional learning and what that looks like at the elementary level. This will be a little snapshot of, a lot of different things that go on, whether it's the classroom level or whole school level, what that might look like. So, who's our scholar, Mr. Jensen? All of the things that we do certainly are tied to the competencies of the state of Montana, which is focused on the whole child. Mary does a great job within our building on a lot of different things. I do some things, and I tell her that I'm pretty big on tier 1 and what that looks like as far as every student is involved. And Mary does a lot of great things with us at the tier 1 level. And I'm gonna let her talk through a lot of those things, and what that might look like for her as she teaches our kids, at every grade level in every classroom, what that looks like. So she's gonna give you a snapshot of what she does for us, through the lens of a guidance counselor.
Okay. Hello, good evening. Yeah, what a great date night. You could pick a better place to be. All righty. So, a few years ago, we started talking about how we could push these lessons more into the classroom, and we're pretty lucky at Russell School because it's a little bit more doable than, of course, the bigger elementary schools. So, at the first couple cycles of lessons, I did them, I can't remember, I wasn't able to do them as quite as often. And then I came to Bill, what was it, last fall, and I said, hey, if it's doable, I'd like to get into the classrooms, K through second, once a month, and then 3, 4, and 5 do 2 lessons in a month. And so it's worked. January, we took off because there was a lot of testing going on, so the kids were pretty busy. It is difficult scheduling classes or the lessons because the teachers' schedules are pretty tight, but our staff has been awesome. They've been very flexible with me and working it out because they know how important it is, all right? So that's basically the groundwork for that. So as Bill said, a lot of my lessons are based on the Montana competencies, and we have 5 of them. We go through the Montana OPI, all right? So number 1 is self-awareness, 2 is self-management, 3 is self-awareness.
Social.
Oh, social, I read sideways. And then 4 is relationship skills, and 5 is responsible decision-making. And when I first started trying to kind of pick and choose my lessons, I thought I would just go through. And last year I found out that some of the classes needed something at that time that didn't fall really in the groundwork of each stage, you know. So then I basically would revisit my lessons and then go back through, like, what does this 3rd grade really need? One 3rd grade class was struggling a little bit with relationships and whatnot, so I kind of went through and revised some of my lessons. So I thought tonight what I would do is go ahead and scroll through one more. Okay, it's just maybe run through an example lesson. The lower grades basically are common language throughout the school is based on what we call zones of regulation. And basically that is simply trying to get the younger kids to try to pinpoint and how they can name some of their feelings and their emotions. Our early K is doing this all the way through. And like I said, it's a common language we use throughout the school. Before I found out with the older grades that this was a little bit too elementary for them. We had to dig into figuring out more emotions and how they could deal with some of the things that they were struggling with. So that's with the younger grades. The sample lesson I brought tonight is with upper grades. And the beginning of this year, I decided, because it's so important for the upper grades to have a trusted adult that they can talk to or depend on or know that is supporting them. So I just started with the relationship skills. That's 3rd grade through 5th grade. So when the kids come in, I always do a check-in with them, and instead of saying to them, oh, what zone are you in? We brought it to what we call a weather check. So what's your weather like today? Stormy, some of the kids foggy. I had one little guy say, I feel like in a hurricane today. And then if needed, we break into small groups, have the kids talk about and maybe why they're feeling the way they did that day. The main idea for this lesson, of course, is the relationship skills. And like I said, I already did it at the beginning of this year. And then I will wrap this around and dip into it each lesson I've done just to say, hey, you know, we talked about that. Have you found another trusted adult? I use ideas of trusted adults, meaning like if they're not quite getting it, it's like an anchor. Who holds the boat afloat when there's a storm or keep you grounded? The string idea is like with a balloon, you know, how do you keep a balloon from floating away? Well, the more strings, the better. That is your trusted adult. So I will do activities with that. And one of the videos I showed that went with this lesson, I really liked, because with the kids too, I talk about when they do have a problem or something is bothering them, a lot of times that doesn't surface until night, Because why? Less distractions, they're thinking about things, they're thinking about their day. So I found this video and I really liked it as an example of getting the kids to start thinking about somebody in their life, and they may not even realize that this adult is somebody that, oh, wow, I didn't think about that adult being one of my trusted adults. The last part shows the student going into a door, and somebody in this room didn't understand what that door meant. And above the door, it says child line. And what child line basically is like a child crisis hotline. You know, they can always call that line if they don't feel like they want somebody they know that they're having a problem or they need support. So we'll just watch the video real quick. Okay, so obviously at the end of that, then we have a discussion about that. Always in my lessons, the kids know that if they don't feel comfortable talking about something with the rest of the group, that they don't have to share. If I try to get a good pulse on the class as well. If I notice like there's a student that definitely needs me to do like a wrap back around with them individually, I will pull them later on and maybe have a visit with them. With that video also, we talked about who their trusted adult was before, and then we talked about who can you add to your thoughts of who is a trusted adult. Because some of those people, they had police, principal, doctor, and I don't know if you could read all the doors on there, but some kids just don't realize that it does, you know, yeah, they've got parents or family, but it always doesn't have to be them. So,
We did a lot
anything else?
we did a lot of, we felt it was very important, especially in the school, that they had somebody that they could go talk to. You know, so that was one of the reasons why we started with this one this year. You know, and then certainly we build upon that, and she does a lot of different things which are great for them. You know, as I'm in this business longer and longer, the importance of their social and emotional, well-being, is bigger and bigger, you know, with every year. And it's something that we have to hit, it's something that we need to go through, and it's certainly things that we have to do within our buildings, to keep our kids grounded and feeling safe and feeling, like they belong and want to be there. So certainly a big part of what we do, you know, and in the midst of all the academic work and all the fun stuff and the play stuff, but an important part of, what we, do not only at Russell School, but certainly it's something that's on your guys' agenda in our districts and all the other elementary schools as well. Questions, comments?
So what kind of assessment tools do you have? Metrics and
We have some tools and some assessments that Mary could do for those that are really in crisis. We just got done with a student survey, that we use building-wide that talks about a lot of these different things. Do you feel safe at school? Do you have friends at school? Do you do those things? We are just now kind of getting through the results of those. I have interviewed, 6, and Mary has helped me interview. We take 6, kids from each grade level, and we ask them questions about the results of those surveys. You know, why do you think they feel like they don't have friends at school? What do you think we could do to support, better as a peer and as, an adult in the school to do those things as well?
And how often they?
Once a year.
I'm wondering, like, with the trusted adult thing, how they respond to that. I'm thinking about myself as a kid, and I think, you know, I maybe was particularly latchkey in the kids around me, but there was definitely a perspective that, like, if you told adults things, you would get in trouble. Do you feel like that perspective is changing? Do you feel like the kids have trusted adults?
I would say most of them, when they go through the lessons, can probably identify a trusted adult. I would say that there's some of them that might not still feel like they have a trusted adult.
And when,
You know,
go ahead.
no, you do.
When I, you know, notice those kids, that's a good time for me to do like a one-on-one with them and just, you know, have that conversation with them. I haven't found, at least since we started really doing drill downs on this topic, that I haven't had a student that absolutely, for whatever reason, isn't gonna at least give me something to be able to support them with.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like it's, I mean, you've been doing this a long time, do you feel like it has changed, or has it always kind of been the same? Like I know kids are struggling with, like, friendships a lot. Do you feel like relationships with adults have changed?
I think it's different.
Mhm.
I don't wanna say that it's changed. I think that, that we understand and know a little bit better that they need that support, and we can help support them with that in our buildings. And it certainly helps as they, you know, develop and grow within our community, within our walls. You know, even when I was in school, you know, you still had those challenges, but you weren't supported in the same way.
Right.
There's just a bigger focus on it, and I think it's fantastic. Certainly things that we need to do to make them feel comfortable.
As Bill was talking about the, the drill down we're doing now with the smaller groups, I had a really good feeling after visiting with my small groups that, the kids admit that they may not all get along. I'm talking relationships peer to peer, but, they get that they have to still respect each other. And one of the questions off the survey is directed toward that issue. And I had a really good feeling about that after I talked to them. Is that all students? You know, absolutely not. But, you know, I think being present too in the cafeteria, Bill's out at recess, building those relationships and just being in tune what is going on. The teachers they do great check-ins with the kids every morning, and they're not just doing it at morning meetings. I believe that our staff is doing a great job throughout the day, you know, checking in on kids and just kind of being in touch of what's going on with peer relationships.
So you're interacting with the children to figure out who their trusted adult is. Kind of automatically makes you a trusted adult.
Sometimes. Sometimes the principal isn't their first choice. But yeah.
Sometimes you are a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about the teachers?
Yeah, you know, they have all kinds of different, and when you see those doors, it's the same thing, at school. We don't tell them who their trusted adult is. They have to choose that on their own, because certainly they want to be trusted with the person that they're picking, but it could be the custodian, it could be the lunch worker, it could be anybody within that building of ours. It doesn't have to be somebody there. We want them to feel comfortable, certainly, with somebody, that they can go to, but that choice really is theirs. We don't force it upon them. You know, and I would think most
with some of these, lessons that you're working on, do you have a follow-up where parents are involved in this also, where they know that their child went through? Some of these are kind of heavy questions, where the parents can follow up and talk with their students at home also?
If I feel like there's something that needs to be shared with a parent, I always will say, hey, I think it's important we talk to your parent. I do that as just me facilitating these lessons. I talk to teachers a lot, and I know that if there's something, they usually come to me, and I'm usually the one that either encourages the student to talk to their parent, then I will follow up with the parent. If it's something really heavy and it's a red flag, or I feel like it's something that definitely a parent needs to know, that they can follow up at home with. So yeah, I do that. Do the teachers do an assessment on that? Not yet. I think we're starting to try to work these 5 standards into maybe more of a little bit of a formal, right, Mr. Jensen? Something for parents? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great
Thank you for your
update.
time.
Thank you
Certainly
so
thank
much.
you for what you do, and, have a great Valentine's evening.
Thank
Peter, I
you.
can't guarantee you she's gonna stay, but
I like how she doesn't make, like,
Like, she's wandering out. Okay. All right. All right, this is the time for public comment, and just as a reminder, at the beginning of the school year, we did change our guidelines so that we have 2 times for public comment now and also at the end of the meeting. So this is the time, at this time, the board will allow 15 minutes for comments on public matters that are not on the main agenda. Members of the audience are encouraged to briefly address the trustees on an issue that is not on the agenda. The chair of the board will seek comments from the audience on significant items as they occur. Public matters do not include any pending legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. Please do not attempt to address such issues at this time, or you will be ruled out of order. Please note that individuals will be given 3 minutes for public comment. Time may be shortened to accommodate numerous speakers. And as I said, public comment will also be allowed near the conclusion of the meeting for those wishing to give public comment, but were unable to do so at the beginning of this meeting right now. So if you have public comment, please come up to the lectern and announce yourself.
We have a sign-up.
Oh, did you sign up? Yes, or
There's a sign-in sheet.
there was a sign-in sheet, I guess, when you came in. Anyone for public comment? That makes it easy. Right, we can go on. Human resources, personnel. Who's taking this?
Yours truly.
All right,
All right.
thank you.
This is a routine item in front of the board, listing all of our certified, classified, hires, extra duty assignments, stipends, terminations, resignations, retirements. We're starting to see those come in. Staff are generally giving notice 90 days in advance of when they hope to retire for the retirement systems. So we're starting to see those come in. Looking for the board to approve the personal action items as presented.
Okay, any questions about that? Not looking for a motion?
I move to accept the personnel items as presented.
Rebecca? Thank you. Public comment? Not. There's a motion on the floor. Can we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Oops. Got the microphone. Thank you. Moving on. Financial reports. Good to have you here to talk these over this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, we said we'd come with financial reports, halfway through the year. So what you're seeing, well, halfway through the fiscal year and then at the end. And so what you're seeing here is a little bit different look than what you've seen before, but basically the same information. And we're starting with, these are cash balances and all of the funds that we maintain, both at the elementary and the high school level. We show the beginning balance as of the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July first, and then through, December 31st. That's the most recent time that we closed our books. So you're seeing the budgeted funds as well as the cash funds here. I'll let you ask questions on specific funds if you'd like at this point.
Denise, you weren't seeing any issues in any of the, but there is some negative balances, but that's at the county superintendent's office, and we just have funds for those.
Right. So, Matt, if you want to scroll backwards to the cash balances, just at the top. So what Scott's referring to is in the miscellaneous programs fund. That's where we account for our state and federal grants. And the negative balance there is because on the federal grants in particular, we have to spend the money first and then ask the Office of Public Instruction for reimbursement. And so that just represents a payment that we're waiting for from the Office of Public Instruction. They've been taking about 3 weeks longer than they normally do. Not sure why, but that money probably has already come in January. Then we move down to Fund 174 in the print shop. We're kind of slowly phasing out of the print shop, but expenditures are still getting coded there. What we'll do before the end of the fiscal year is take that negative balance and distribute it back to the other funds. That's the routine that we've done anyway. And then the other one is the insurance fund. The self-insurance fund is in the negative right now, which is kind of typical for this time of year. A lot of the, especially the big reimbursements that we get, haven't materialized yet, and will be in the second half. We have a financial report just for the self-insurance fund coming, so we can look at that a little closer. But other than that, all the other funds are right on track, I think, with where we need to be. They reflect the first half of property taxes that have come in, as well as payments from the state. The next set of reports is just the budgeted funds, both at the elementary and high school levels. Those are the funds that you formally adopt an expenditure budget for in August. It's for the entire fiscal year, and this represents the spending authority. And I think with most of you, we've talked about budget authority versus cash. So this tracks budget authority. We start out with what the board has adopted for an expenditure budget, how much we've spent so far, and then how much is remaining. And then the last report that we have on here is the self-insurance fund. This is the balance sheet for it. Currently, we are running in a negative, and it's because our expenditures have exceeded our revenue. But if you scroll to the revenues and the expenditures report, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Under the revenue, or under the expenditures, I'm sorry, see where it says reimbursements and refunds? Mm-hmm. For the past couple of years, we end the year with over $1 million in reimbursements. So as you can see, most of that comes in the second half of the fiscal year. Those haven't been booked yet. And then the other thing is there are there's premiums that we haven't received yet that we haven't booked as revenue yet. So that kind of contributes to that negative balance. I expect at the end of the year, we'll end up, as we did in the past 2 years, with revenues over expenditures, and we end up with a positive balance. And that's all I have, and we'll entertain questions if you have them.
I just have one question. Why do we have, what's the difference between the line items 190, 191, both are parent-teacher organizations?
Mm-hmm. That's something I didn't fix.
Oh.
So it's on one of the other reports. Yeah, Fund 190 is actually parent-teacher organizations and money that's collected at the different schools from the informal PTOs. The other one is a separate fund that I have mislabeled, I
Oh,
apologize.
no, it's okay.
Yeah, but it represents some money from Title I. We, we have an interlocal agreement with about 5 other districts to, pay on behalf of the non-public and homeschools that choose to participate in Title I. And that's just the residual money that we're keeping separate from our own grant. Kind of what that is.
Any other questions? Denise, I would I want you to know I appreciate the more streamlined way that you've put all these numbers together. And finance, the way that you have condensed the number of times that we're looking at this as well. So you're keeping track of it well at the finance meetings. This is not an action item, it's information only, so there's nothing we need to do with this tonight. So I think we can move on. Right, public surplus.
I'll start on this one. So anytime the school district is looking to dispose of property, you are required to formally pass a resolution to dispose of the property. And that could be through either sale or throwing it away. So it doesn't matter what it is. If it was purchased with public funds, we have to notate that. So in these lists, you have a list of things that were gathered up from the maintenance yard. This is the actual resolution that will need to be signed, but there's a list of things that were gathered up from the maintenance yard. Just a wide variety of things. Some of it is, and they try and list what's inoperable. Some of it's just old, antiquated, or we haven't used in quite some time. So we make it available for the public to buy, or we can throw it away if they don't want it. And then you also have the other list is all technology, and Eric can probably speak to this better than I can, but these are out of service, out of date, out of lifespan items that we have available in the district. So what happens is you buy a Chromebook, it has an operation life of about 5 years. They'll change the software that controls the Chromebook and suddenly makes it obsolete. We can't use it for any of our assessments. We can't use it for certain programming. So, you have in front of you.
Any questions from the board about this? We go through this often.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like we've had this question before, but like, what's the process of selling it? The IT stuff especially, there's like a buyback, some things get bought back somewhere?
It has that ability. We post in the paper that we have surplus property, and we'll generally direct people to the website where we have a list of what it is, and then we will let people make an offer for items.
Okay.
Someone willing to make a motion?
And move to approve the surplus property resolution as presented.
Thanks, Lance, a second.
A second.
Thanks, Lloyd. Any comments from the public? Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Go on to a contract.
All right, and I'm going to take this one as well. In front of you tonight is a motion to approve an orientation and mobility service contract with AK O&M LLC. This is a person who, through special services and special education, provides orientation and mobility services for students who may be blind or deaf. And so through the IEP, there's a requirement that we provide these types of services. This person is charging $50 an hour for those services, which is in keeping with what we'd expect. Sarah Cole actually is the one that worked on this contract. This is the only person in the valley who does this type of work. Anything else would probably have to come from further afield, like maybe Great Falls, where the school for the deaf and blind is. Yep, we're just looking for an approval on this one.
Mike, how many students are we serving?
You know, it varies. I know we have at least one student who's, completely blind, and we have some others that have, legally blind, diagnoses, so, I couldn't give you an actual number, but we have several in the district. And so one of the things I would say is we couldn't put a full cost to this on an annual cost, we just know that we need to do that. And typically, we use Medicaid funds to, pay for those services.
And today, make a motion to approve the orientation and facility service contract with AKO and SLL.
Why, yes, you can, thank you.
Can I second it?
Yes, you can, thank you. Any more deliberation? Questions from the public? Got a motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, thank you. Let's see, are we on to a letter of intent?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'll just keep talking.
Yes, so,
All right.
please do.
So this is, in front of the board tonight is a letter of intent to, which is basically an agreement from the board to say we want to pursue, options. And, you have, in front of you the letter of intent, and what this is really referring to is a potential for a lease agreement, a lease-to-own agreement for a piece of property that is located at 1935 3rd Avenue East. So if you're trying to picture where that's at, it's directly across from Lions Memorial Park, south of town, maybe near Scotty's, or whatever it's called now. Ruggles is in the area, so just trying to give you some geographic markers where this is located. We refer to it as kind of the Torrent building. Torrent Technologies used the building for a number of years. It was originally built and used as a Forest Service building. So it was a federal building back in the early 90s, was sold and has basically been used for lease purposes. As a district, we have been looking at potential new property for at least the last 3 years since I started as superintendent. We started with a committee, an ad hoc committee that was looking at our maintenance transportation facility, looking at our print shop facility, looking at are there ways that we can consolidate some facilities to reduce expenditures, to reduce a lot of things, but also have some benefit to the district for the long term. I'm going to refer first to the board policy that talks about lease to own and leasing in general. School boards and school districts are allowed to lease for a period of up to 15 years with no real requirement for any approval other than the board. Anything beyond that, you can lease up to 99 years, but you have to go to a vote with your qualified electors. And so we're looking at this space that's 36,000 square feet, which is a pretty considerable sized building. We also looked at other properties. One property was what I refer to as the Kimber building, or the Kimber Rifle building, behind the Nissan dealership south of town. And we also looked at the space in the old Gateway West Mall, which was Teletech. That was 60,000 square feet of really big space. I would just refer to it as being cavernous and not a lot of natural light in it. So we've looked at multiple properties over time, and I'm just going to have Matt go to the pros and cons list on this. And what we're seeing is kind of the pros to this is, one, just from a life health safety standpoint, the security audit that we had literally gave the building that we're housed in an F for those features, in part because there's no egress except for a single stairwell, unless we're out on the roof and doing something else. The electrical in it, the fire systems, just about everything in it is in rough shape. ADA accessibility, if there's, it's a little bit ironic that we have a phone inside the door for people to call to get help if they need accessibility, but you've got to go up 3 steps to get to the phone. That's a problem for us, always has been. Other kind of pros, which would be on the left side of this list, is just a consolidation of properties. with proceeds that can be used to go towards the purchase price. We currently have the library building is the school district's. We lease that to the county, and for the library system, for basically utilities. We also have what we refer to as our current transportation building, which is really where the Heart Locker is located. We have our transportation offices in there, driver's ed offices, an IT person is housed out of there. And then we also have our operation and maintenance facility, which is at the end of Meridian Court. So we have a lot of auxiliary buildings that serve the district in a variety of capacities, but we're running a lot of different buildings because we just haven't had a building with that kind of space. Elections, we have typically run out of the district office. There are new requirements for elections. One of those requirements is ADA accessibility and the ability for someone with disabilities to come in and actually vote on election day using a machine. Again, if we're using that facility, we don't have a space for that, so that becomes part of it. I referenced a little bit some of those auxiliary services that have potential use within that building, the Torrent building. One being daycare. We've tried to put a couple in various locations in our school district, but still space is continuing to be an issue, but the need for childcare continues to grow. You could potentially move our health clinic, which we pay rent on or lease at another site. There's potential for that. The Heart Locker, if we close down that building, we're going to need a space for those services. Kalispell Education Foundation, the Kalispell Education Association, Work-Based Learning Coordinator, K Community Involvement Coordinator. We have a lot of these auxiliary pieces that support our district that don't have a home presently, that we would love to be able to provide a home for. I think even for the board, having a board room, having a place for committee meetings, having places for staff and teacher training, curriculum services, just a wide variety of uses. Obviously, this is a space for central office as well, board functions, parking. If you've ever tried to park at the district office, I think there's 13 spots that are all pretty much taken most of the time. So we run into challenges with people getting tickets for being parked on the street for more than 2 hours and just that availability. Permanent storage, we currently are required to keep a lot of documents for permanent storage, and some of it's for temporary storage. So we keep space for elections, and we keep space for curriculum materials and student academic records and employee records and business records and all sorts of stuff that there's just a constant increase to what we're required to store. We can actually rent any of the unused or unoccupied space in the building if we were to take that over. It has green space, which is really nice, and there's a park across the way. It could be used for potential classroom space as well. That was one that Matt really wanted to point out, that with a building that size, we could have some really creative ideas for, I'll just say, space that could be used for a lot of multi-purpose uses. And then we're in a people-oriented business. One of the things that's becoming apparent in the realtors world is that these large spaces where they used to house lots of employees, they figured out, oh my gosh, this is a huge portion of our budget to rent this space, and we can actually consolidate and move people to working remotely or working from home, and we don't have to have the headache of managing space. School districts are not in that position. Most of our interactions are face-to-face and require that. So on the con side of this, obviously the new cost of the district, which could be offset by the sale of properties. If you look at the lease agreement, right now the way it's structured is the lease would be $40,000 a month with $10,000 applied to the sale, final purchase price of the building. School districts cannot pay more than appraised value for a property. So in the agreement, we've said that we would mutually agree on an appraiser. There's only 5 in the valley that do commercial appraisals, so and all of them are very highly spoken of and well regarded. So I don't think that would be an issue. I think one of the cons to this is just the perception of change. you know, and what that means for our district. But I think looking forward and looking out, we see that we have a need, and so we want to take advantage of that. The funding for this, initially coming out of the interlocal agreement, would be the proposal, and with our intent being to get to a place where we're consolidating our facilities, putting payments toward purchase price, and hopefully having what would be a much more shorter term lease agreement than the maximum of 15 years. And no matter what, if we were to buy the building, we would have to go out to voters, to the public for a vote, and they would have to ultimately say, yes, you can have a site acquisition of this property. So now I stand for questions.
Yeah, this is the time for the board to ask questions. After we make a motion, then there will be time for public comment. You know.
So, as far as the appraisal, because I'm reading through it, it's mostly all talking about the lease. We don't have an appraised value yet. The thing that we are talking about today is a letter of intent. Do we sign the contract before an appraisal, or we have an appraisal first?
Appraisal first.
So we would know how much it was?
Yeah, this is just the ability to get into an exploratory mode for actually getting into a lease.
And if we have the space leased, like, how soon do you start to ask the public if we could buy it? Like, do you put that out right away, or you put it out, like, after the money is available?
Yeah, well, I think that's up to the board. I think the recommendation would be, initially, let's, get the lease going, figure out how we want to use that space, what it would be used for, in those purposes, and then really, up to the board on, you know, putting property on the market for sale, and working through those processes, but knowing that we're trying to structure a lease that allows us to use those monies to offset the cost on purchase price.
We also have one?
I had a question.
Yeah,
too.
you do too,
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Will there be another, so if this is the exploratory side of it, will there be another vote on whether or not we actually lease the building?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, what is for the buildings that we would potentially sell, what is the prospective amount of money we can get for those buildings? How many are there?
Well, it would be the library building, used to be the old Edgerton, which is behind Taco Bell, building, and then we have the, maintenance and operation building, which is on Meridian Court. And all of those valued, you can get into, what Dave Gerardo would do as a CMA, so looking at what do other similar properties, what do they sell for, and what do you think you could realistically list this for? I think a building like the library, could be anywhere from $2 to $3 million. It's, it's a fairly large chunk of space, but it's also one that would be really expensive to remodel, something that the school district would probably not entertain, anytime soon. So I would say probably in the neighborhood, for all three buildings, somewhere $2 to $4 million. Depends on if there's competition for, the properties. We know what we could list them for, but someone could come in and offer more.
And, do we know from the building that we're looking at, the Torrid building, do we know what because we're looking at possibly purchasing it in the future, do we know what the current cost of utilities are? I know that that they're gonna pay the utilities while we lease it.
Yeah, I got a printout from, Scott Hollander, who owns the building, and it was $47,000, but it included garbage, taxes, utilities. It had a breakout of all of those things. The utility side of it was actually pretty inexpensive.
But with everything, it's annually, taxes and all, it's about $47,000.
Mm-hmm. For him, but that also included his accounting, his attorney fees.
Gotcha.
I mean, he had everything listed into that total cost for him.
Gotcha. And then, what are the annual costs for maintenance what would you estimate the annual cost for maintenance are on the current buildings that we would wind up selling? Or is that too tough a question to answer right now?
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me.
If I email that to you, would we be able to figure that out?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually, it's pretty pricey, interestingly.
Yeah,
And then just looking at what the upkeep is currently,
sure.
one of the things we've identified is that the windows need painting. You know, someone stood on the ground, looked at it, said $65,000. Just to paint the, you know, you gotta scrape them and paint. I mean, so it's those kind of things that we're gonna have in terms of ongoing costs and maintenance for that building.
Sure. And then do we have, an estimated what the build out would cost for us in that?
We don't. I think a general, rule of thumb in the industry would be, $100 a square foot. But it's relative to a lot of things. So one of the nice things about the Torrent building is it doesn't have any, internal load-bearing walls. So, excuse me, all the walls are load-bearing on the perimeter. It's been re-roofed in the last year. It's been, everything about it's been really well done and has had good upkeep, over time. It's got fire systems, it's got alarm systems, it's got camera systems, it's got a lot of things that if you were to, say, remodel or add to, would increase that cost. So if you're talking carpet, paint, and moving some utilities around internally, it's a little harder to guess on that.
Sure. And then, would we be sharing this building with anybody?
You could.
If we don't lease it out, like, are we talking about leasing the entire building for us? There's nobody currently that would be in there?
There's actually 2 current, leasees in there, but they're on a month-to-month, and then we can make the determination as a district as to whether or not we want to let them continue or if they want to take over that space.
Sure. And then, so if we wind up purchasing it, you said that would go out to voters?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as in there on the letter of intent, it said that, the amount for the lease would go up 2% each year.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be able to, or would you be interested in, talking to them about making that a percentage instead of, or no, I'm sorry, backtrack. The 10,000 or 10,000 that goes toward purchase. Can we go back to see if we can adjust that to a percentage instead, so that as our rent goes up, that the amount goes up as well? Instead of being 10 million, or 10,000, it'd be a percentage of?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think, you know, when you look at these letter of intent and getting down to a final lease agreement, it's, you're trying to come up with a compromise. So I think anything in there is negotiable.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to saying, you know, would you consider 20,000
Okay.
a month going towards the purchase price? Whatever we can do to limit our overall costs in purchasing that building.
That makes sense. And then, I'm sorry, I wrote down a bunch of questions. I don't know what the business was in there previously, but are there any contamination issues or lead paint or anything like that?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Asbestos? Okay. And then the last one, have you consulted with the communications firm that we just, are working with over in Big Fork as to would there be any, what was that? If it will affect the possibility of passing a levy, because I know we need to.
Yeah, I have not.
Okay. They were all my questions. Thank you.
I do share that last concern of what are we doing to downtown, what are we doing for moving away from downtown? I overall think the library building is, you know, a very difficult space, but I do want to keep an eye to, you know, walkability, visibility being part of it. But to me, at least the over by the lines is still walkable and part of town.
Questions from the board, yes.
So you had a list of things in the pros of like things, possible things that could be in this building. How many of those things do you think could fit in there at the same time? Like,
All of those.
all of them.
All of those and then some.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest drawback to the building, is the way that it's situated. The bottom floor is daylighted out, to the south, which is great, so there's windows, both floors, lots of good natural light. The backside of that building is not daylighted, it's underground. So when you look at places for storage and those kind of things, that would be where we would put like the IT department. Sorry, guys. That's been our running joke.
They're allergic to boardroom.
Correct, something like that, yeah.
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the biggest downfall in that, but it doesn't actually amount to that much space that's, impacted by that.
I know when we've talked about possibly moving out of the library building, the library has been a part of the discussion. I know the library is talking about moving. Are those things tied together? Like, have you been talking to the library board about the fact that we're moving out? Is that
I
together?
have not talked to the library board. I've talked to, Ms. Cummings, who is the director. I've talked to their administrative assistant. I've talked to, Pete Melnick at the county administrator. So yeah, we've been having lots of conversations about what does this look like and, you know, the lease agreement and, all of those different things. They're complicated, but at the same time, they're not. There's nothing that precludes the district from selling that building. We could retain it for, a period of time. If we sold it, the new owner could continue to lease the library. Anything could happen in that.
But we lease to the library for a small amount.
Utility.
For the library leases it.
Yeah.
They just pay utility.
Any other questions from the board? Anyone feel comfortable making a motion right now? So then we could actually deliberate? Yeah.
I move that we approve the letter of intent as presented.
Ursula?
I'll second.
As a board, we can deliberate, and then we could, take comments from the public. First, the board. Will, you've spent time there in the torn building.
Elevator can be a problem, and the doors.
Mr. Hollinger did tell us that the elevator had been repaired, had significant work done on it. So it has not been an issue that I know of, at this point.
Will does the
Otherwise,
service.
it's a very nice building, the light is really good. And Brueggel's is right there.
Look at the waistline of the administrators right now.
And I just say I'm fully in support of this, motion, and that, moving forward as a district, I think this building provides a lot of opportunities that are not currently in facilities that we have. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, and I guess like, after having remodeled some things that needed more and talking about what it would take to do things with the maintenance building, with the, I can call it laser building, you know, a federal building that was already built like that, feel is going to be a lot less of a headache than trying to start something from scratch.
On that. I think one of the things that we looked at is, as we were exploring this, is, you know, what would it cost to build new? You know, we have a maintenance and transportation building that we're building, steel buildings, very minimal. You know, we're gonna be somewhere between $7 and $8 million for those. I don't know if the, you know, 36,000 square feet at $400 to $500 a square foot, we would not be able to, buy the property and build and construct something like that, for what I think this building will ultimately come in at as an appraised price.
My concern for years has been about the ADA compliance and just how to get around that. And I'm thrilled with the difference. That was my thought. Yes, Jack?
The building that we're in, what year was that built?
1918,
And, when did the school district purchase it?
1966. so the building is not quite as old as Flathead High School. I'm just thinking we have to upgrade, and all our facilities are upgraded, and, central office shouldn't be singled out as one that is not due to be upgraded.
Well, and I'd say that one of the biggest things that excited me the most was be able to consolidate a bunch of stuff and to sell some properties to make it affordable for the district. In that building will be the rest of what we're paying. That's what we really want, so support it as well.
I think it's exciting that you're looking outside of the box and thinking of more usable, multi-purpose space, right? Like, I think it's cool that you're thinking classrooms could go in there, or, you know, just kind of extracurricular classes that kids might be doing. Daycare, obviously, is a big issue, those things. So I think it's a great idea.
There's nothing else from the board, public comment? Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name's Sean, I live in Kalispell. Where's the cost analysis? For anyone to make an informed decision, a cost analysis is necessary. This board should be presented the analysis, the cost analysis associated with the buildings being considered for consolidation, as well as appraised values, so that they may make an informed decision instead of blindly trusting a pros and cons list that is not even labeled. Further, numbers that should be presented are the costs of the new building. Since a buyout option is on the table, what are the annual taxes? What are the annual utilities? Will the cost of the building, what will the buyout or the build-out cost be? You mentioned $100 a square foot. That's $3.6 million if I did the math right. What are the estimated annual maintenance costs as far as like applying the snow and stuff like that? And I think 50% of the rent should be going towards the purchase. I think if you get to the point of negotiating the lease, you should be really firm on that. Like, that's a whole lot of wasted money. Who knows how many years down the line it's gonna be? And it's all going in his pocket anyway, the current owner. So half of it is rent, and the other half would be the down payment that, you know, this is taxpayer dollars, so $10,000 that doesn't even go up, and Mr. Bondi already made that point, but I think it should be 50%, personally. Making this type of decision with such a limited amount of information is reckless. So before you make the final lease vote, more info is needed. Furthermore, it's shady, approving the move forward using the funds, the interlocal funds, to get the ball rolling towards a eventual purchase will be voted on by the taxpayer. Well, by the time that the board vote comes around, the district will have sold the other properties, essentially painting themselves into a corner, forcing the taxpayers to say yes. This is, in my opinion, borderline fraudulent, if it's not presented to the taxpayer ahead of time. And obviously, there isn't a whole lot of people that showed up here or even know that this is going on, unfortunately. But I'm paying attention, and I certainly hope that you all, if you do approve the letter of intent, which is good, you should, I think, probably approve this. But before you vote yes on that lease, please do a complete analysis that you can present to the public so that we can all see, hey, this district does have the taxpayers' dollars, considering the taxpayers' dollars. And it's right here on paper. We are going to save X amount of dollars, and get all the numbers in there. Don't miss any, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Mm-hmm.
Hi, Trish, and I'm in Trish Pandy, and I'm in Kalispell.
Thank you.
I just have a question, and I know you're probably not gonna answer me, but out on Birch Grove Road, there's two pieces of property. One is owned by the District 5, and the other one is owned by the Flathead County. The one that's owned by District 5 is .2. I think 0.2 acres. Is there a reason that you have that piece of property? Is it possible to sell that back to the Flathead County, put that money towards the new building? Just wanted to point that out, that this property you're not ever gonna do anything with, so you might as well sell it.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Constance Newman from Kyla.
Thank you.
I have a background in commercial real estate, and as you were speaking, I had a couple of questions come to mind. On the letter of intent, could you tell me on that 40,000 payment a month, what is the annual per square foot lease rate? What does that come to?
This is just public comment. It's not to have questions answered.
No questions?
No.
Okay. My other comment was actually a question, so I guess I'll reserve that. Thank you.
You can ask, but it's not a time for the board to answer. You're welcome to send letters or to send an email. Okay.
Hello, my name's Nick. I'm from Kyla. I just penned down a couple of comments and more rhetorical questions than anything during this discussion. The first point I'd like to make is that it's interesting that the superintendent lists a ballot measure in the con column for pursuing this. Perhaps that's because the district has a perceived adversarial relationship with the public. Allowing books such as drama to be read by children as young as pre-K is a great example of why and how an adversarial environment maybe exists here. People who pay taxes should support the thing you're trying to do before you do it. And a failure of that happening is a failure in leadership and outreach to the public. I just want to know if there's any such outreach planned. This is no different than a levy on the ballot, which has failed several times in the past because the public perception of the district is negative. If the ballot measure for the ultimate purchase of this building fails, and it seems likely to fail, what is the district's plan? As another commenter said, you're effectively painting taxpayers into a corner. We've already leased the building and sold out the other assets.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Ingram. I'm from Kalispell, and I'm also a library board trustee, but I'm just speaking for myself. I haven't been personally involved in the discussions. Obviously, we, as long-term leasers of the facility, or one of the facilities you're continuing or considering selling, we would appreciate being kept in the loop so that we can, and part of, to answer your question, is that, yeah, some of the reasons, although in a long-term strategy, we'd like to, as a community, and nobody has a secret there, that we would like to find a larger space. We are currently, have a mixed bag with a lot of people liking it where it is. So I would just ask that you keep the communication lines open with us so that, because we can't move a library in 6 months. And that would not look good for the district either. So we would appreciate your communication with us.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If there's no one else that pleases the board, could I address some of the questions?
Thank you.
Comments? Because I appreciate those. First of all, and my notes are kind of scattered on here, but the reason why I put the election in the con column is because the election for our high school district, which just would have to be, cost about $50,000. So if it's the only thing on the ballot, it's just an additional cost. So that was my reason for putting it there. To my knowledge, we have never not had a successful land acquisition or property acquisition for the district, in part because we don't ask our taxpayers to pay more to do it. We save money, we sell something, we do something that's fiscally responsible for making that happen. With regards to the rent question, it's $16 a foot for the daylight area, and it's $12 for the basement area. The areas that would not necessarily have windows, was what was proposed. So that's where we come out with, it's roughly $40,000, for that, which is in keeping with, comparable rental prices, across the valley. So Dave Gerardo, working with him as our realtor, commercial real estate, agent, has a lot of background, in these processes and things, has been advising us along the way, and feels like that's an adequate and fair, charge for that property. The Birch Grove Community Center, that property that you were referring to, Trish, was a little, one-room schoolhouse that was gifted to the district, long time ago. We have leased it, for, I think it's $5 a year to the Birch Grove Community Center. So there's a group of people out there who use that to have potlucks and, gatherings and maybe weddings or other things. The value of it, we had a CMA done on that piece of property, not worth a whole lot. I can't remember what the exact number was, but if we decided to sell it, one, it pulls that away from that community for their purposes, and so we haven't decided to do that. If we did, they could certainly make an effort to purchase it, but then you'd be asking a group of community people to come up with the money to buy that. So it wasn't seen as something that we needed to liquidate, and it wasn't something that we wanted to create a burden for those individuals that use that space.
Schoolhouse is sitting on the district, the fund account.
Yeah, I think so. I looked at it on Montana Cadastral before. I didn't even know we had that property till 3 years ago, and we were just looking around in all of our old records at what we have. But that, to my knowledge, that's the best I know. Just a little tiny, and it's surrounded by multiple other lots according to the property boundaries. But we'd have to go in and do a real thorough title search to know exactly what we have there. So, yeah, I think those were the questions.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
You know, the ADA accessibility is a pretty big issue that at some point the district could be sued for not being accessible. Any ballpark what it would cost to make the current office ADA accessible?
You know, I have talked with like Morrison Merrily, with architects, you know, just kind of give me what do you think? You know, and just a renovation of that building in general would be upwards of $8 million, just to kind of touch it up. And if you kind of look at the building, if you ever walk around the outside of it, you'll see, number one, that our entrance for the school district was cut into that building after the fact, probably in 1966. So when you come into that building, you can see that the brick isn't quite the same. They cut partway through the windows, and then you look at what the library did to create 2 floors. So when you walked into that library, it was a post office. It was a federal building, and it was this big vaulted ceiling. And then they added in the staircase and the second floor. And if you look at the windows on the outside, you'll see that there's little grates and pipes sticking out. That's where they put all the heaters, the univents, that have condensation pipes on them that drain out of those windows. And you'll see like insulation in between the flooring and things. So, yeah, you know, for truly ADA compliance, you know, remodeling and, you know, putting in doors that are ADA compliant, putting in restrooms that are ADA compliant, an elevator that runs 3 floors, that you probably have to take out some parking area. creating a vestibule, I can't even imagine. It'd be super expensive. It'd probably cost more than, the building that we're trying to lease own.
Well,
So, Micah, if everything were done just boom, 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 when do you think you'd be occupying this?
Good question. That's such a hard one to know. You know, part of it's getting, you know, the lease agreement, getting an appraisal. Appraisal will take, you know, 4 to 6 weeks, if we're lucky. It could take a little bit longer. Once you do that, you're probably looking at, you know, some sort of services to have someone come in and help us kind of map out, sketch, you know, how things could be constructed in there to best serve the needs of the district. I would not see that we're occupying all the space right at once. That would slowly build into that, just to, I would say, pay as we go, so that we're not asking our taxpayers to do more. You know, if we were in it in a year, you know, with the central office, and you know, it's a lot of work to move a central office too. So I would say 6 months to a year.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Right?
Where would we get the money for the build out portion of it? If you were saying it was $100 a square foot, I know we wouldn't build the entire thing out. But do you have an estimate on how much we would build out? Like, are we gonna do it in phases or?
Yeah, I think we'd take I can give you my estimate, but I'm not the expert. And I don't see it being $100 a square foot, because that's you're touching all aspects of the building. In this situation, you know, it wouldn't require any engineering as far as where you're gonna put walls and do those kind of things. But I can see the build out coming from building reserve is a possibility. Interlocal agreement could certainly be a possibility. Savings and or capital from the sale of other properties. So just a variety of things, but nothing that I would recommend that put ourselves in a position where we can't afford to use the space.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we sell the maintenance building on Meridian as soon as the transportation and maintenance building is done?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be the first easiest thing to sell.
Yeah.
Okay.
No other questions? We still have a motion on the floor that was made and seconded. Ready to call for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a long haul working through these things, and just trying to position the district moving forward for serving the best interest of our staff and students and community. So appreciate that, and look forward to coming back to you with some more details and an appraisal and all those numbers. So,
Well, thanks, Micah. That's a lot of work. We put you on the spot there.
no, it's good.
Okay, Peter. Calendar presentation, yes.
So, obviously, the calendar, process, you know, pretty much started last year at this time, so. 2 calendars, the upcoming year, and then looking a year out. So looking at the 24 calendar, the board approved a skeleton calendar, you know, mainly looking at the start date, the finish date, or the end date, spring break, Christmas. And so, we worked through a district committee, and that's made up of elementary, middle school, high school, staff, also administration. Heather was on there as a representative, you know, of the board. And so we met on January 12th. You know, our biggest discussion, besides making a couple of adjustments, we had a few mistakes on there, just making a few adjustments. You know, the biggest thing was taking a look at, you know, the early releases, and that seemed to be, you know, where most of the conversation occurred. And so we talked about it on January 12th. We talked about it, you know, as a K-12 12-ed admin team, and then, brought it back to the calendar committee again on February 2nd, and then, went to the board personnel committee on, February 8th. But again, just kind of getting back to, you know, the, early releases, and that was one thing that we felt that it was really important, you know, to be able to keep those early releases, and we still have a lot of work to do. Matt has a lot of work to do on outlining the, you know, some of that PIR and, you know, what that might look like going forward. But the reason that it's so important is so if you take a look at, you know, our goal number 3, I'm gonna look at that real quick, is in our strategic plan. And, you know, that really talks to, you know, some of the things that we really want to do, as a district, and be able to follow that, you know, and goal number 3 is challenging and diverse learning environment. And it says, you know, within each building, Kalispell schools will offer rigorous educational programs, activities, and experiences, you know, that are designed to support the skills, talents, and abilities of all students. And then it goes, you know, further to explain, all schools will engage in structured professional development to define and assess competency in academic areas. All schools will expand access for all students to experience enrichment activities. And so that was a lot of the discussion is, you know, where is this going to take place? When we're working on transformational and personalized competency-based education, you know, we talked about, hey, well, could this be done in a day? Or, you know, is this the best vehicle in order to get the work done? And, you know, after going through the committee and then the personnel committee, you know, we felt that this was probably, you know, the best interest, you know, for everybody to be able to move it forward. And so before you have a calendar with 34, you know, early releases on there, you know, that's going to be specifically designed around our transformational learning grant, and especially around, you know, that goal number 3. The other thing that, you know, we talked about was putting a skeleton calendar out for 24-25. So I guess I want to know if you want to take discussion on the 23-24 calendar, and then we can talk a little bit more about the 24-25 calendar.
Yeah, I guess so. So, we need to have a motion to approve, or I guess, do we have any questions about the 23-24 calendar?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, it looks like school starts on the day after New Year's. But you've got several days before Christmas. Wondering about starting right after.
You know, we looked at that, we talked about that, and it's, you know, you talk with staff, and you know, you talk with everybody involved. You know, you get about a 50-50. Some people, hey, we would really like to have a longer Christmas, or, you know, we would rather, you know, come back on January 3rd instead of January 2nd, you know, and in the end, you know, we felt that was adequate. The one adjustment that we did make, just because of how the calendar fell this year, was Martin Luther King fell before the end of the semester, so we had a full PIR day before the semester ended, and then we had an early release on Wednesday, and then they had semesters, and then an early release on that Friday. So one of the adjustments that we made was we moved the full PIR day in January to after the semester. You know, so those are some of the things that we looked at.
Can I add to that real quick, Pete? One of the other considerations, and this happens, what's happened every year, and, you know, depending on where the holiday breaks fall, we have an obligation to work with our negotiated groups on when those paid holidays are. So that becomes first and foremost. But then the other thing that we usually will hear about is parents who say, why aren't you back at school? I have to go to work. Can you please go back to school? And then we have to explain, well, when a holiday falls on a certain day, we have to honor that, especially if it happens on a weekend, we have to honor the day following as the day that is the paid holiday. So sometimes those kind of things become constraints in this as well when we're building out these calendars.
Yeah.
So the first year we put in the early ask, it was so that teachers could deal with online learning, and the second year we did it so that teachers would have time to work on their own and transformational learning. are you now saying that we go forward in perpetuity, or what's your thinking on if this is permanent or not?
I guess I look at it, as something that can go forward in perpetuity until, that would continue to be our recommendation. The biggest reason for that, when you think about, a teacher's day, starts at, we'll just say 7:30 and ends at 4:30. And, so they put in their 8 hours, and then we say, oh, by the way, here's what we're doing next. We want you to be ready to do this, and where are they going to find the time, to do that? We look at, case studies and, research that shows the data behind the science of being engaged in meaningful professional development to make a change in your practice. It's right around 50 hours. And so being able to provide that time for our staff to, continue to improve and grow and provide, the best education they can for our students, is just, it's important to us. And I think our staff appreciates that as well. So, in short, I would say I could see it being a recommendation moving forward, but, things could change too. We could maybe find a different way to do it.
My concern is that, when it first goes in, it's like extra time, like, oh, yeah, I have every Wednesday afternoon, to work, and it feels like more time, and it feels like it has gradually become just an expectation that gets filled up with more, bureaucratic work and no longer that, oh my gosh, I have extra time to get something done. So that's just my concern that it, no longer special. But I was also curious.
Yeah, and I would say I've definitely heard that, from some staff members that, they felt like they were their best teacher, when they had this additional time, carved into their day. I think one of the challenges that we look at as a community, and remember, we surveyed, our community and said, how do you feel about this? And about 24% came back and said, I don't like it. This is hard. I work at the hospital and I've got to figure this out, or I work in law enforcement. I've got to figure this out. I work, period, and I've got to figure this out. But it also said they supported the idea, that our staff had that time, available to them. And, so yeah, we've heard that from teachers. I don't know that I could come in front of the board in good conscience and say, what I'm asking for is 2 additional hours of free time, to be in my profession. We wanted to see that time be used in a way that supports them professionally. So I've heard both sides of it, but that's where, the recommendation from me as the superintendent comes from, is that I was never imagining that this was just gonna be free time. I don't know that our parents and our community would support that notion as much as they would support professional development.
Well, grading, interacting with,
Yeah.
free is, well, still work.
Yeah.
So that was a big topic, with a lot of the teachers there. They brought that up quite a bit, where it did start off as extra time, free time for them to stay on top of everything and connect with their students and do online learning. And when we met the second time, it was really, the teachers kind of came asking, as long as it is put out to each individual school of what the expectation is on these are PIR times, where they're gonna be doing things. I mean, we came at this, to me, I feel like, with transformational learning, it's a big ask. We are putting more on their plate, and it's really so broad. We're not even giving them a textbook of this is what we want you to implement. It's this huge, broad picture of here, figure it out, and tell us what you come up with. And so I feel like they need that time. And so to me, I kind of came at it like, I thought Wednesdays were great to give them their free time to meet with their students, do all that. But the more we talked about it, I mean, it really makes sense to carve in those extra hours where they can meet together, they can meet as a group, they can break off and branch off into their individual departments and really figure this out of what we're asking. So, and another big thing with the early out Wednesdays, we all kind of discussed, if we take it back now, we will never get it back. And I mean, we're really going down this path with transformational learning of things are going to look different. we don't know what Wednesdays are gonna look like in the future with this pass. So in order to change all the schedules and be like, okay, we're taking away early out Wednesdays, and then trying to come back 2 years from now saying, hey, we really would like this back, it's kind of a hard ask. I mean, I'm not sure if we would be able to get the public to be okay with giving that.
Mhm.
So as it's set up, do each different schools kind of get to decide what happens with their Wednesdays? Like, is it the administrators decided, or?
I mean, you can answer that. Well, to me, this is what I found.
Mhm.
They kind of, it sounds like it's broken out, and it sounds like they want a little more control. They kind of wanted that control of deciding what those weeks looked like every Wednesday. But then at the end of it, it was kind of like they turned it back over to these guys saying, you know, just let us know what you need us to do. Point us in a direction, and we will do it.
Really good question. And so I think, Heather, you get an A+ for listening during the calendar committee and then doing a nice job of condensing all of that thought. That was a really good explanation. Specifically to the early releases and the kind of the teacher choice, transformational learning is this big thing. We've broken it down into a more descriptive, personalized, competency-based education. And so there's definitely components of it that are universal across all schools. And then there's some specifics that schools are working on, as an area of focus. And what we plan with those early releases is to give opportunity for both. So if there's something that is universal that all elementary teachers are working on, we currently have what we call the wheel structure, and that's where all the elementary teachers come together. There's a menu of options, and they pick what's pertinent to them for the next phase of what they're working on for their class. And usually they're grouped by grade level or even just content area, and they'll work through that. Then they go back to their building, and it'll be more of a building-wide. So that early release schedule would be a combination of both things, and we put that out in the calendar, in that staff calendar. And I'd also echo what Mike has said about, during COVID, there was a reality that to try to help teachers get through, the teachers need more time to facilitate individual conversations or to take what they were currently working on and make it in a digital format to be able to present to students. And then we've migrated away from that to, it's still early releases, but it is structured. And so that has been a shift that we've communicated. And I think that the feedback we received from teachers was everybody would like more time, right, for the things that they're working on. But as long as there was structure and there was it was put out there in front of all of this, is that this is what we're doing, and here's going to be the menu of options, and this is how it's going to impact you as a teacher and your building. And the objective is to move all of these things forward.
I'm gonna ask the same question again, kind of, but like, even more, so is there a superintendent mandate of what is supposed to happen week by week?
No.
Okay.
There would be, inside the strategic plan, if you read through each category, there's some lines that said at the building level, they will. And then it's like dot. And each building is coming up with a site-specific plan, and they're working through some of those things. So we would expect our building principals to be working through and filling in those dot. Inside of that, there's, teacher competencies and teacher skills that they're gonna need to grow and learn how to do things differently. And when we recognize there's one skill that could apply to teachers in different locations, we put that out there instead of running independent trainings at each one of the sites. We put that up and have a cohort of people come together from multiple sites. So we've already given them marching orders as far as the board has laid out the strategic plan, and then we're coordinating the professional development that will allow us to build a strategic plan, and then we're organizing it with the flexibility and the reality that each teacher is coming at this from a different place of expertise, and we want to meet them where they are and then push where they're going.
So the short answer is yes. However, there is autonomy and choice, just like we would expect for kids, as they're learning. Adults aren't a whole lot different in that regard. So we're giving a framework, to work within, to satisfy those requirements.
Any more board questions? Yes, Rebecca.
How much is this already, I mean, I know there's legal requirements of a certain amount of PIR time, and, so how much is this already boiled into what we have to give and what we have to give according to our union contract, or, yeah, those are union contracts. Particularly, I always hate the early Wednesday out on the same day that there's a day off that week. That Wednesday early out and then Friday early out, or Wednesday early out and Friday off is always crazy for every parent. So, you know, wondering, are we at our max number of hours we have to leave it this way, or can we still play with
I'm
it?
gonna let Pete take that one.
Yeah, so, I mean, good question. So, yeah, within the calendar, and that's why, you know, we set a skeleton calendar. So, you know, 187 days, 5 days, you know, for, PIR within, you know, within that. And so everything is reflective of that within the calendar. And then you also have to get into the minimum aggregate number of hours. And so it's, like, well, kindergarten's 720, so halftime kindergarten is 360, 720 for grades 1 through 3, and then 1080 for grades 4 through 12. Now, when you're taking a look at the early releases, so we fall a little bit short on that, but then the board has passed, you know, I guess, in response to the transformational learning, some of those linchpins in there, you know, that allow some of the flexibility in some of those board policies, such as work-based learning. Let me just reference some of those, you know, 2050, you know, student instruction can satisfy aggregate hours, you know, through on-site, off-site, and online instruction, through work-based learning. So we do that, you know, outside of the regular school day. And there's, you know, even, technology-delivered classrooms. So that's how we're able to, meet those aggregate number of hours within the school calendar. But, you know, just to answer your question on that, yeah, the calendar does fit within, you know, the 187 days that are in the contract for the teachers.
I think part of that question too is, you know, let's look at October, for example. MEA days, are actually established by the state constitution. So the third, Thursday and Friday of October is set aside, statewide. And so we have a early release the day before. So we have, right, early release.
It's
and then
that
you got 2
January
days.
one, we all know the one that.
There's a January one, and what we were trying to do is just remain consistent. I think the more schedule changes we put in, and especially when you talk about, like pre-K through 5th grade, but even students with disabilities, and messing with schedules and just like, well, is today an early release, is it not? Am I getting on the bus early? Is my parents expecting me home at a certain time? It just creates a lot of, other ancillary challenges for us. So that's the real reason.
It looks like on the January, it's the 22nd, my eyes aren't, I'm getting a lot of yellow dots.
22nd,
Like the 22nd is also, so they would get the 19th and the 22nd off in that case.
Right, yeah, that's just the one where it's like, yeah.
That was the
It's that
one
early
that,
out 17th and then the one day, yeah.
That was one that,
and it was one of the, high school teachers that brought it up too, talking about how difficult it was for them, to really start that new semester, and how it would be beneficial if we had that day where they could finalize grades prior to, then have that Monday, start fresh, refocus, start the new semester. It just gave them a little extra time to regroup and finish off the first semester, and instead of having that holiday would fall on, the 15th, they take the holiday on the 15th, and they're doing finals on the 18th, 19th. It kind of was messing with the schedule with, not only that, but giving them, especially the high school kids, that Monday to prepare for finals and be in school with their teachers, kind of.
So there's five of those full PIR days. So if you look at, there's always 2 days before school starts, you know, for teacher preparation to get ready. There's the 2 that Mike had talked about, you know, in October. There's one in January 22nd, and then there's 2 trade-off days. So like teacher conferences, what else?
Open house.
Open house, registration, different things like that. And so the trade-off for those is that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then if you take a look at spring break, the 1 day of spring break. So that's where, you know, the 187 days falls within the teacher contract, within 180 days of, student instruction.
Is anyone willing to make?
Procedural question.
Of course.
I wasn't sure why calendar went through, not like it wasn't a committee for it, what did you say?
Personnel.
Personnel? I was confused about that.
Last year it went through curriculum.
Last year it went through curriculum, I was curious why it went this year. What's your choice, Peter? That was a question to you?
Yep.
As it relates to personnel?
I think it could go through a variety of,
Yeah, no.
of committees. One of the reasons for personnel is because, we have roughly 900 employees who are affected by the calendar.
Sure.
So that was, I think, part of it. But, yeah.
You want me to be perfectly honest? That's the way Kelly had it set up. She had it set up for this year in that, so I was just following that lead, you know, on that. And I was just assuming that's how it went down last year. I didn't realize it went through curriculum committee
Yeah,
and personnel.
It might have been because we met with personnel last week and curriculum meets after this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And it's probably finances turn next year.
Board governance.
Yeah, or governance. Anyone willing to make a motion?
Well, I move to approve the recommended 23-24 district calendar in the final draft.
Been moved and seconded. Any public comments? Wonderful. There's a motion moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I think we can move on to the 24-25 calendar. Peter?
Yeah, so, once again, the 24-25 calendar just basically establishes, you know, so, once again, we have to work in, you know, within the 187 days, and so that's what we're looking at, in order, you know, to fulfill those dates, and so, you know, we put in the start date, we put in the end date, we put in the holiday break and the spring break. We also just try to get that out there, so other districts tend to follow our lead. In fact, they start calling Micah in December saying, hey, where's your calendar, and where's next year's calendar? Because we do try to be consistent across the Flathead, Valley. You know, hey, here's when we typically take our spring break. Here's, you know, some of the other items that we're doing. So, we just try to put out a calendar with the start and end dates and with those other vacations in mind.
You approving this one?
Yeah, it looks like this will be a action item. Well, questions first?
So on this one, the January isn't switched up. So if it was decided that it was better to have the day off after the semester was done, should we not maintain that practice?
Can I get into my, my spiel? So, I mean, what we're looking at mainly is, you know, kind of the start and the end date. Some of the discussion that we've been having that follows our transformational personalized competency-based education is doing something a little bit different with the calendar. And so that was the discussion that we had with the calendar committee is, how do we make this a little bit different? You know, so it provides more voice and choice, you know, for our students and also for our staff members. But yeah, working within a negotiated agreement that we have with our staff. So one of the things, you know, that we're looking at and want to get it back out to, you know, the calendar committee and work through it is possibly having the semester end, you know, in December. And so we could, you know, we could start, it would be a 77-day semester, as opposed to a normal 90-day. But then what we looked at was, okay, can we provide enrichment and, intervention opportunities for our students, you know, within that? So instead of going right into the semester in January, can we build a 3-week interim session in there and then, you know, provide other opportunities for students, you know, whether it's, you know, Matt brought up the idea, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could take some of our 8th graders and go out to the Ag Center for, you know, 3-hour blocks within that time? Or wouldn't it be great if the student built house, hey, they had, you know, they had additional time to be working on some of those things? Or, hey, maybe there's a student that is struggling in algebra. And, you know, I've always said everybody can do math. It's just some people they can do it in this amount of time, some of it can take this amount of time. Wouldn't it be great if something was built into the schedule so that they could do that? How about taking a trip to Italy where the kids, you know, can experience, you know, international travel and possibly get a credit for that? Or maybe take a running start class during the intern session. You know, we're also working with the college on, hey, creating some micro-credentials, you know, for students so that they can start exploring, you know, some of their other careers and doing some different things. So there's, you know, a lot of possibilities within that. We have a lot of work to do because, you know, as we're planning this out, you know, what does it look like at the elementary thing? Some of the people on the calendar committee, you know, hey, can we get together in K2 or 3-4 or 3-5 and do something different? You know, Matt has also talked about, you know, what about kids that aren't ready to start school? Well, maybe not have an interim session in January. Well, what about a jump start at the beginning of the year so that we can get, you know, kids ready and prepared as they move through, and then they can progress a little bit, you know, faster, you know, as we get into, you know, the more of this personalized competency based education. And so then, you know, you take a look at that, it would be like a 77-day semester, and then you put the 3-week term in there. Well, if you added another semester in there that was a 73-day semester, you could end, you know, somewhere around, you know, the middle of May. Well, now, during that time, you know, most of our students, whether it's IB or AP, you know, they'd be done with their testing. And then once again, we could offer those and give teachers choice on what they teach and students voice and choice on basically what they take. Or, you know, some of them might say, you know what, I'm done. I want to be able to move on. But it kind of works the same way in, you know, in May. And then, you know, kind of as a reach, you know, we've also talked about adding, you know, extended school time into June. You know, and then possibly, well, maybe a kid wouldn't want to take any of those 3-week classes, at least at the high school level, or it could possibly be at the elementary, depending on what the parents are doing. So what if they didn't want to take the January term and the teacher didn't want to teach that time? I don't want to teach that 3 weeks during January. I'd rather teach that 3 weeks in June because there's other things that I'd want to do. I want to go to Flathead Lake and do, you know, some lab research, or we want to go to Glacier National Park and do something like that. So these are just some of the ideas that we have out there. There's a lot of things, you know, there's a lot of barriers, but, you know, the questions that we ask is, you know, why shouldn't we be doing this and giving our students more choice and more voice and you know, modeling that with our staff and giving our staff more voice and choice. So, you know, I know 2 people that are pretty excited about it. I know Heather's excited about it. I'm pretty excited about it. And then, you know, some of the other things we're working on is, you know, within work-based learning, we've talked about, you know, a center for career discovery. So kind of opening that up. And then I said, well, wouldn't it be great at the college? We've been working at the colleges. If they were creating micro-credentials, it could be in any area. And some of those micro-credentials, a student, they could get done, you know, in May and then take a micro-credential in June, whether it was in electrical or heavy equipment or, you know, basically in the medical field. And then they could get an industry-recognized credential for something like that. And then get on as an apprenticeship. And hey, as an electrician, hey, if you take these theory class from, you know, at the college, we'll not only give you credit, but be a part of a pre-apprenticeship. And then, you know, that's kind of your interview for being able to go into a summer job. And if it was somebody that's a junior, it's, hey, we would also like to keep you on for work-based learning, you know, throughout the entire school year. You can use these interim sessions, you know, to basically work full-time. And, you know, it gives us, our students, more opportunities to explore different things. So that, you know, there's a lot of things that we really have to work through, but I'm excited about some of the work, and I want to be able to take this back to the calendar committee and say, hey, you know, here's some of our thinking, you know, as looking at these interim sessions and things that we can do, but I also want to give them the skeleton calendar and say, you know, what are your ideas? And say, I'm not looking for affirmation on this. We want an opinion. Is there a better way to do things, you know, for our students, you know, that aligns with our strategic plan? So I can tell I get pretty excited about, you know, about changing things up a little bit because at least for me, I think it's good for students. You know, do we have to overcome a lot of things? Do we have to figure it out? Yeah. But I said, hey, we've got people, you know, with bachelor's, master's, doctorates, said, we can figure this out and do what's best. And, you know, is it going to be the same in the high school as in the middle school as in the elementary? You know, we don't know that. We've got to spend a lot of time, you know, with this. And, you know, I think we do need that time to explore and see what we can do.
With this calendar, it's just like the second draft.
Okay.
So it's basically our start and end. And I think with what Pete's saying, this calendar is going to really look much different when we bring it back with a final. because it's only in draft 2. So, like with that, the 13th being there, I agree. I think we should stick with the structure, but I think January is gonna look really different when Pete gets done with his plan.
So, do we need to approve draft 2? In the past, I don't think we have
Well,
approved.
here's the one thing, Ursula, is that we still have to work within the, within the contract and the negotiated agreement. And so, we still have to have those 187 days. And the other thing that we've talked about is, hey, should we go to a year-round, or a year-round school? Should we look at some of these things? But, I think, that if we do incremental changes, and work within some of the traditions that we have, it's not such a shock to, to our parents and to our community, and, to make some of these gradual changes, and just give us time to be able to, to work through this and say, hey, well, this is working really well, let's just keep it, or, hey, can we make this even better? There's some other adjustments that we can do. So, that was the biggest thing, when we looked at this, was just trying to keep a little bit within the tradition, but yet allowing some of that flexibility, for our parents, for our students, for our staff. Hopefully that helped answer that.
I mean, I love everything you just said. My question was not nearly good enough to deserve that answer.
I just had to go off
As you know, I have been pushing for the, break the semester just for winter break so that the students can really break during that time and relax and not be thinking about any classes. But I have recently learned that it is more standard than I realized to end the semester in January. It's just, so I'm no longer, I gradually almost come to accept it's just as you're making the change.
You can get re-excited about it, though.
Oh, I still love it for me, obviously.
So I guess this would be a motion to accept the skeleton draft, is that right?
Okay. Draft 2?
Yeah, skeleton draft 2.
Okay.
Do we have someone willing to make the motion?
So I move that we approve skeleton draft 2 for the 24-25 school year.
I'll second.
Wonderful. Comments from the public?
Should we do year-round school? Absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item of business, the MOA, KEA representation fee, memorandum of.
So, and I have invited Lynn Ryder, our
Lynn?
KEA Association president, to just talk briefly about this. This was brought to us late last week, so we didn't have a chance to get it in front of committee for any further discussion, but figured we can answer your questions tonight.
Generally, the year before we do negotiations, we go through and do a language review. So we have some points in the contract that we think need to be written to show our intent, but this piece of our contract is actually obsolete. So the last time we did language review was pre-COVID, and it was also pre-Janus decision. The Janus decision, if you remember, is that not charge people a fee to be a part of the collective bargaining unit. They have to want to pay the whole thing and be a part of the unit, or they don't have to pay anything. So the old idea was that you still have people working for you, you still have people negotiating for you, that you should be paying at least a partial share. So after Janus, this was actually no longer legal. We haven't been collecting, but the language is still in our contract because we have not done a language review. And so our proposal is to get or to eliminate all the language that discusses, representation fees. We would leave this one, and then just kind of, this statement, and then get rid of everything that describes what a representation fee is. And then if you drop down to number 2, there's one other change, and it's just right here, and fee. So the only, funds, that the union collects are actually dues. Be a part of a collective bargaining unit. So we thought we would clean up our language before we actually get into negotiations, so that not, discussing things that are obsolete now.
Wise idea.
Yeah.
And the administration is in support of the language cleanup. And then once approved, the following year when the contract is reopened, all of this will be cleaned up and doesn't require any further procedural processes.
Board questions? Motion?
So made.
Second?
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, there's another one?
There is another one. The Kalispell Maintenance Engineers and Grounds Association Union also has similar language regarding representation. Theirs is in a different article, but we're asking for essentially the same from the board.
So made.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Oh,
Jack
and Lloyd. Thank you. Procedural, so I went quickly. Sorry about that. Yes, I moved quickly. Okay, let's see, elementary consent agenda. Do we have any questions about the consent agenda that you want to pull out and ask about?
Oh, I know, on the, Puerto Rico trip, it said that there were scholarships available through the tour company. And I just wanted to request in the future that we, if they're gonna do their scholarships outside, that we get more information about how many they give, if they, you know, just information if it's really a viable option, or if it's just, they say they do, you know.
Yeah, right.
Well, if we don't have control, if we can say 3 kids go for free, I'd like to know if a Kalispell student has ever gotten such a scholarship.
It's middle school.
Okay. Okay, good idea.
Did I just write card?
Any other questions
you-
about elementary?
Do you know about the scholarships?
We have tours only.
We have a motion in, to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the elementary consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ursula.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. Any other comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Myself included. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. District consent agenda. Do you have anything to pull out with the, district-wide consent agenda?
Dan?
Yes.
Did KPS attend other district schools? It looked like that was more of an elementary issue, just because they're all going to Crossroads.
Yeah, Crossroads.
Is Crossroads
Middle
on,
Can we just pull that out and put it on next consent?
can we? Okay, so we don't have to worry about it tonight, just pull it out. So, Thank you, Lance. Would you be willing to make a motion?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Lance and Will. Any other questions about that? Any comments from the public? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I was in favor as well. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, informational items. Reports. Trustee reports. Can I start with myself?
Yes.
Nothing to report.
I have nothing as well. I was invited to a student gathering at the Linderman Education Center. They had a nice display of their logo on, the Whitefish Credit Union now has debit cards with their Phoenix on there, so, it was pretty exciting. That was pretty fun to see on last Wednesday.
Nothing to report?
Nothing.
I've got a humorous one. So when Bill was up there presenting the self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, that was all going on to adult children hockey games I was refereeing last night.
Adult children.
They could all benefit from that.
Lloyd.
In my elected role as school board trustee, I volunteered to be on the Special Services Committee. This is an important appointment for me because over the last 30 years, I've spent a huge amount of time volunteering with special needs kids and adults. I've been looking forward to being a resource of value to our extended school network. Due to a set of beliefs about me and my position on other topics which require a vote, it has been stated by the administration and other senior appointments that I don't care about our schools and I am not welcome on some properties for observation. Although I disagree with their assessment, I am not willing to be the center of attention on what appears to be personal attacks. It is with great disappointment that I'll be stepping down from the Special Services Committee today. It is my hope and desire that whoever takes my role will be equally as diligent and caring for the important tasks that I was prepared to fulfill. I would like this board and community to know the following. Number one, I do care about our schools. This is why I ran for school board trustee and why I am active in the community. I will serve my full term as trustee with diligence while representing community values. And two, just because I have a differing opinion in my vote does not mean that I don't care, and my difference of opinion does not matter. I represent my community and what has been expressed to me as their desires. My votes and actions reflect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. I don't know where to start now.
February 2nd, I attended, the Ag Center Advisory Council meeting. We got to review the curriculum guide and we reviewed the lease agreement and we got to hear all the great things that were going on there. Last week, we met on the 8th for the Personnel Committee. And everybody will be happy to know that the HR position we are looking to fill. It is open, and Micah says we have a couple, 3 in the pool right now. The position's going to close on the 17th, so hopefully by April 25th, we will have somebody to bring to the board so we can get that position filled. So that was something that we were all definitely in need of.
On Saturday, I was at an event and I met and chatted up a teacher at School District 5. And he's very happy about his being in the school district. Dates, the Wednesday early release date, because it helps him a lot.
Well, how about let's start with Denise. Can we do that with administrative reports? Thank you.
I actually.
Oh. You don't want to add anything else? No more numbers?
This time, maybe next meeting I'll have some more.
Used up all my allotted time on the calendar. So Pete used up all my allotted time on the calendar.
And I have nothing to report.
Okay. All right. Okay, then I say let's, make sure you take a look at upcoming meetings and events. Oh, public comment, I am so sorry, I overlooked public comment. Please, so sorry. This is the time for public, comments on, matters that are not on the main agenda. Members of the audience are encouraged to briefly address the trustees on an issue that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone here who, okay. The chair of the board will seek comments from the audience on significant items as they occur, which I've already done. Public matters do not include any pending legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. Please do not attempt to address such issues at this time, or you will be ruled out of order. Thank you. Please come to the podium. Thank you.
My name is Devin Decker.
Yes.
I live here in Kalispell.
Of course.
I just wanted to come here and, 'cause I heard about what happened to Lloyd here on Facebook, actually. I saw a Facebook post and I was really hoping it wasn't true. I think that's, rather sad that a principal of an elementary school would say that a member of the school board is not welcome on school property. And I'm hoping that there's some action taken on that. 'Cause that's just abhorrent. You know, he has a right to, effectively execute his duties as a board member. And, to be prevented to doing that because of opposing views is distasteful. That's all I gotta say.
I guess at this point, I would have you.
We have more public comments.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you,
Sorry, I
Sean.
didn't jump up quick enough.
Yes.
Sean from Kalispell. Well, that's too bad, that trustee Bondi has had to, step back from the committee that he was on due to the way he's being treated. It is disappointing, and, shouldn't be like that. All of you are elected. I don't know if there's ever been a situation where someone's been treated in a way that would make them feel like they needed to step down off of a committee. Any trustee has, not that I know of. I mean, I certainly haven't been here for all the years that this board's been in place, but I've been coming for a while, and I haven't seen that. So I would also hope, I mean, I didn't even know there was a Facebook post, but I'd also hope there was some action taken, to just let everyone know, you know, trustees are part of this process, and, they shouldn't be denied access to anything this district is doing, because, it's their job to make decisions. Voting here, if they're not fully informed, then how can they make a good decision? Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any other comments? Want to cut anyone off? If not, I would have you, so that you calendar,
Can you pull up the calendar real quick?
yeah, upcoming meetings and events. I do know that I had an email notification that the upcoming governance meeting has been canceled
Will be rescheduled, yep.
and will be rescheduled, okay. Rest of them are there. I know I'm pretty bad at making sure those are on my calendar. And I guess at this point, unless anyone else has something to add.
Is something, did you see something from her? Oh, just the curriculum is at Glacier.
Oh,
One is at Glacier.
thank you for that adjustment.
Curriculum committee will be in a small conference room at Kalispell.
Okay,
Is that the one up front? Is this a small one or is that the big one?
That's the big one.
Where's
Where's
the
the
Small
small
one's just back by the office, which is by the principal's office.
I don't.
Know where that
Checking
is.
at the office.
Okay. All right.
You don't know where the principal's office is?
Not at Glacier. I don't know Glacier.
Good for you.
I don't have kids there.
I'd ask you, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Okay, happy Valentine's Day.